So as we begin this Trinity Sunday, the words of Nicodemus echo. How can this be? How can this be? The only way to really get a handle on the idea of a three-in-one, one-in-three God is by trying to find some images that help us maybe to make some sense out of all of that. The Trinity suggests that God is the eternal creator who is beyond us, the love who comes to us, and the love that is within us and surrounds us. God is the source of all life, and at the same time a companion in life, and a guide for all life. All that and much more. The Trinity suggests boundlessness. There's more to it than we experience at any one time. God is all of this and much more. God is the eternal and the incarnate, the unknowable and also the self-disclosing, and more. God is beyond what we expect or understand. Helpful so far? Don, you want to sum that up for me? There are images that help us understand that. There's a couple that are on your bulletin cover. One of the images that I liked was that of an apple. An apple has the skin, right? It protects the apple. It gives clarity about what kind of apple this is. Is the skin the apple? Then there's the white part, the meat, that has the flavor and nutrition. Is that the apple? And then there's the core. The core begins the apple. And it holds the promise for an apple tree and more apples. Is the core the apple? Well, they all have their part, and together they're an apple. But if any one of those was missing, it wouldn't be an apple. What images have you heard or used to try and help understand the Trinity?
Tree.
A tree? Okay. What are the parts?
It has the roots, it has the trunk, it has the...
Okay. The leaves and the trunk and the roots. Okay.
The word persona in Latin, I think, is a word applied to a mask. And an actor could play three parts by changing his mask.
Mm-hmm.
So three personas.
Okay.
And I like it.
Okay.
I like that.
Other images you've heard?
Water, ice, and vapor.
Water, ice, and steam or vapor, yeah. Okay. Number one answer is a three-leaf clover. You know, it's got three leaves. They're individual, but they're one. There are other images. One that's on your bulletin is overlapping, sort of looks like a triangle, I think. Yeah, sort of. Together it's a triangle. There are three overlapping circles sometimes, where right in the center is where all three come together.
My ring.
Your
It's
ring?
a Celtic ring. It has all the intertwining, continuous.
Okay. All right, so see her ring afterwards. Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. Mike, for you, it's the chick from Matrix, Trinity. Okay, sorry.
I'm going to say birch trees. They always plant birch trees with trees.
Oh, okay, birch trees.
Palms and all these things.
Okay, okay. Or take, for instance, Mary. Mary is a mother. She is the child of parents. And she's also Don's wife. Which one of those is Mary? All of those? Yeah, so there's images we have up on the altar. You probably, well, maybe you can tell. The candle in front, in the center, has three wicks that are all lighted. Which light is the candle? Okay, so there's lots of images that are there. One that I go back to my grade school days and think about, you know, we had those desks that they had the tops that you would pull up and then you put your books in there. And then up on the other side of the hinge would be this flat part made out of wood. And then there'd be a part that would be carved in there. You could put your pencils. Well, going to grade school, I remember taking some mercury. I'm not sure where I got it, but I think I know where I got it. And so I put it in, and there would be this big round drop. Stay out of this, guy. So you take your pencil and you break it into parts, and they would be their own separate, smaller beads. You push them together, and seamlessly they would just go into that same one. You know, that kind of mystery. Do you find any of those images particularly helpful? What's the most helpful of those images for you? Anyone? None of them? All of them? Some of them? It's a difficult thing. How do you explain a mystery? How do you image a mystery? It's difficult. Now, for some, as you get around the Trinity, it's easier than it is for others because some of us are more comfortable with ambiguity than others. But no matter what, it's how do you explain a mystery? Frederick Buechner in Wishful Thinking points out, the Trinity is an assertion that appearances to the contrary notwithstanding, there is only one God. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, meaning the mystery beyond us, the mystery among us, and the mystery within and around us are the same mystery. Then he suggests another way of looking at the Trinity. He said, try looking in a mirror. Your inner life, that which only you know, or those that you choose to let know, it's kind of like God, the unknowable. The actual face, the thing that most people see, that they know the presence is kind of like Jesus. And then that which is hidden beneath that. This last week on NPR, there was a brain surgeon that was talking about the brain, and he said that in the area of your brain that triggers movement, that before you make a movement, something fires off in that, and you can see it before you make the movement. There's something mysterious about us. He's saying that might be an image. What you're looking at in the mirror, he says, is clearly and indivisibly the one and only you. They're different aspects. Ellsworth Cowless writes, I have lived in the world of religion since before I was born. And in this long period of observation, 70 years and counting, I've learned two things for sure. First, you can't put God in a box. Second, we keep trying to put God in a box. Distinguished chemistry professor once said, only those in freshman chemistry class know everything there is to know about chemistry. So if somebody says to you, this is what Trinity is, beware. Bob Olmsted was one of the fine preachers in our conference. He retired a few years back. And in all of his sermons, there would be 3 or 4 or 5 great stories or illustrations or things that were easy to steal and file away for another sermon later on. Well, I was looking at this week his sermon on the Trinity, and that was true. He had a number of good ones. But the one thing that caught my attention was something he said. His own declaration. He said, I know no proof that God exists. I only know my need to whisper thank you for the unexpected and wholly undeserved privilege of being alive. What a miracle. Sometimes it's not for us to figure out, but just simply to experience and be grateful. St. Augustine was one of the great thinkers of the Christian faith. On one occasion, he was walking around close to the ocean, and he heard a voice tell him, pick up a seashell. And so he picked up a large seashell, and then he heard the voice say, now pour all of the ocean into that seashell. He said, Lord, I can't do that. The voice answered, of course not. In the same way, how can your small, finite mind ever hold and understand the mystery of the eternal, infinite, triune God? Now, I think for the most part, we don't have a problem with the one God part. I think we got that. We come from a Hebrew tradition that has a prayer they say in the morning, in the evening, and oftentimes during the day. It's called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Every day they pray it. The problem is, I think, that we experience God in a variety of ways. So how are those variety of ways one God? I think that's kind of the struggle here. It's not so much theology as experiential theology. How do we make sense of our experience? How do we name that which we experience? That is at the heart of the Trinity. Now, ultimately, the Trinity is not something to be understood or explained as if. The Trinity is to be celebrated. It is an expression of the many ways God has come to us. The Trinity should be a joy as we relive God's touch in and on our lives. Mickey Anderson compares the Trinity to sailing. He says, you can analyze, even overanalyze sailing by breaking it down into scientific principles involved. The Beaufort scale of wind speed, lift that pulls the boat through the water rather than pushes, various kinds of knots, the charts, the intricacies of trimming the sail. All of those can make you a better sailor. But it's for nothing if you can't experience the joy and mystery of the wind on your face and in your sail. Some things with God just simply need to be enjoyed and not explained. When my kids were growing up, I oftentimes would go on field trips with their classes. I did 4 science camps. It was wonderful. Well, when Stephanie was in 3rd grade, her class took a walking trip around downtown Brentwood. Seeing the stores, seeing the people that were around, seeing the alleyways where they led. Probably some of them had never walked downtown Brentwood before. Well, there was one little girl who was part of the class, and at some point in the walk, she came up to me and she said the strangest thing. She said, "Are you a priest?" I thought, what? She said, "Are you a priest? You look like a priest." Well, and I didn't know what to say to her. She said, "Are you a priest? You look like a priest." She said, "Your face looks like a priest's face." And she said it in a real warm kind of way. So my guess is she had a really positive experience with a priest who made a connection with her. So she said, "Are you a priest? You look like a priest. Your face looks like a priest's face." And I did not know how to respond. And then she said, "You look like a priest on vacation." I go, okay, I can live with that. I can live with that. Yeah. Some things you just need to celebrate and not figure out. The real question today is not what exactly are the parts of the Trinity. The questions are, how has God come to you in the past? And how do you need God to come to you right now? How do you need God right now? You may have seen the film Dead Man Walking. It's a true story. Sister Helen Brigine became the spiritual advisor to a convicted murderer and rapist, Matthew Poncelet. He was on death row. She visited him, trying to help him grasp what God meant to his soul. He never admitted what he did. He always denied it. But at some point, after a long struggle with him, he finally came to the point where he stopped denying his guilt and took responsibility for the horrible things he did. After that, she said to him, "You are a child of God." With tears, she said, "No one's ever said that to me before. No one's ever said that to me before." Without a doubt, there are those of you here today who need to hear that word, "I am a child of God." More than anything, you need to hear that now. You may be feeling a little insecure or uncertain about things, and you just need to hear God say to you, you are a child of God. Let's pray. Our God, I lift up to you those who are here in our midst who need to hear that word of love, that word of relationship, knowing that you care for us deeply, that you love us deeply, that we are yours. For those who need to hear that today, please let them hear your word to them. You are a child of God. And we give you thanks. Amen. Right there. In 1989, there was an earthquake. Anybody have an earthquake in mind? It's not that one. Thank you. I just wanted to get that out. Yeah, I remember sitting at the TV waiting for the Giants and A's to play in the World Series. It's not that one. In 1989, however, there was an earthquake that almost flattened Armenia. This deadly tremor killed over 30,000 people in less than 4 minutes. In the midst of all that confusion, the father rushed to his son's school. And as he arrived, he only discovered that the building had been flattened. Standing there looking at what was left of the school, he remembered a promise he'd made to his son. No matter what, he had said, I will always be there for you. Tears began to fill his eyes because he knew it was a hopeless situation. But he couldn't get his mind off of his promise. So remembering that his son's classroom was in the back on the right in the school building, he went back there and he began to dig through the rubble, a stone at a time. As he was digging, grieving parents would come, clutching their hearts, saying, my son, my daughter. They tried to pull him off, telling him that it was no use, it was too late. They're dead. You can't help. Go home, they'd say. Policemen and firemen told him the same thing. And to everyone who tried to pull him away, he would say, are you going to help me? He continued digging, stone by stone. He needed to know whether his son was really alive or dead. And he remembered his promise. And so he dug. He dug for 8 hours, and then 12, and then 24, and then 36. And on the 38th hour, as he pulled back a boulder, he heard his son's voice. And he called out, Armand! And his son said, Dad, it's me, Dad. And the boy then said this, I told the other kids not to worry. I told them you had made a promise. And that if my dad was alive, he would find me and save me, and he would save you as well. You kept your promise. Kept your promise. There are some of you here today who may feel like the weight of the world is on you. But you're covered by boulders and boulders upon boulders. And it feels like there's little hope. And for you, you need to hear the word that I will come for you. I will be with you. No matter what. That is a word that is here for you. God has made that promise. Let us pray. Our God, you know the difficulties in our lives. For some, there is pain in families, there is fear in families, there is fear in relationships. For others, the boulders are more financial. For others, those boulders may be physical. You know those who feel the bottom of a pile of rocks, covered with no control, little strength. Speak to them your word, that you are with them. You will not give up. You will dig and dig until you set them free.